Alright, what's up everyone? Today we're going to be adding the ground to our last project, which is just making a canvas, which you can see right here in the code. And so we got our setup function. Yeah, we got the structure for p5play type games. We got at the top line 1 universal variables, which we haven't made any yet. Line 5 we have the note for the setup function, and 6 you can see the setup function being made. And by the way, now that you see that it is the setup function, some students are like, yeah, I don't really need that note on line 5. And then if that's you, just get rid of it, okay? Same down here with the draw function. Here I've got the draw function on line 16 and a note for it on line 15 saying, here is the draw function. If you don't need that, get rid of it. I'm going to keep it because, well, I did the work. And I would like to keep, well, the work for my work, okay? So down here in line 22, we're going to be making some customized functions, which today we're going to be using one, okay? So up here, to get us started, what we're going to be doing in this assignment is making a ground for our video game. And what we got is a canvas. What we don't have is a ground. Now the canvas, for me, remember I made the background this color, which again, I can't run my program, but you can. And whatever color you chose, it should be that color. For me, it is this, I'm going to call it a sky blue color. It's just a nice color for me. I like it. I think it makes me feel good inside. How about that? So now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and make the ground. Now to get us started off with making the ground, I'm going to need a universal variable. So I'm going to make a variable for the ground. The ground. And what am I going to call it? Well, we're going to let it be the ground. You know what? I'm just going to do this one different. I'm just going to call it grass because I'm going to make mine look like grass. Okay, now if you wanted to make it look like bricks or something like that, you can do that, but I'm just going to make it look like, well, grass. Okay, now that I've got that in there, let's go ahead and come down to just below line 23, and we're going to make a customized function. Now, if you guys have not seen me do this yet, when I make customized functions, I always do it at the top of the list, which means as I go further down my list of customized functions, which I don't have any yet, but if I were, later on, which we will, you'll see that the ones that are lower are the oldest of my customized functions. Okay, so I'm putting this function here on line 25 for the grass, making the grass. Okay, and it is going to be a function, okay, because in the p5play structure, you have your universal variables at the top, then you have your setup function, then your draw function, which you can see for me, line 16 and 17, and then down here on line 23, this is where I'm going to make the customized functions. And you know, if you're like, well, let's make customized functions, then you can put that in there too. So what am I doing? Line 25, I'm going to make the grass. So what am I going to call my function? Well, I don't want to call it the same thing as that variable, right? So let's see. Yeah, I did call it the grass. So on line 3, it's called the grass. Down here, we're going to call, well, we're going to call it, I'm going to call it making grass. Parentheses, fancy brackets, and then over here we got the closing fancy brackets right there on line 28. Yeah, let's go ahead and move this up so that we can see this at the top. Now, I'll still show all the code later on in the video, but at least right now we'll be able to see the code from making the grass. Okay, so in my making the grass function, I need to put in a new line of code. Now, I didn't do this from above, and I should have mentioned it before, and I'm mentioning it right now because I just said, let's put in a new line of code, and immediately your response should have been like, no, Mr. Sal, we're not putting in new lines of code until we test this sucker. That is very good. Make sure you test this out before you put in any more code. In case you've made a mistake, either up here on line 3, where we said let grass, what could go wrong there? Maybe you misspelled let. I don't know. Could I have misspelled let? It's possible. And how would I have done that? Well, you guys have seen me type. Sometimes my typing is not very good. So it's not like I purposely misspelled let, but chances are, with me especially, that I have misspelled let because of a typo. Okay, so we called it grass above, so here I'm going to call it grass. What am I going to do with this grass? Well, I'm going to make it an object. So we've done this before, grass, space equals space, and new, all lowercase, NEW space, and we're going to make it a sprite or an object. Now, in this as well, this line of code, S, capital S right there, needs to be capitalized. If you do not capitalize that S, you can run into problems, okay? It's capital S, sprite, and in addition to that, I'm still seeing a lot of students miss the parentheses right here. So please do not miss that set of parentheses. Okay, well, we put in a line of code. Let's put in another line of code. What did I just say, right? I just said, don't put in any more lines of code until you test that. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're probably expecting to see a sprite, which right now would be a square. I believe it's a 50 by 50 pixel square that every sprite is automatically made into by default, and it has no specific color. So if you were to continue to run the program, you'd get different colors. But guess what you're seeing? You're not seeing anything. And that's because up here, what did we do? We made the making grass function. It's customized, right? Well, we're going to call that customized function up here inside of the setup function. Okay, so notice what I did right there. Okay, let's go back. I went to the end of my world gravity, line 11, and I just pressed enter a couple times so that I'm still inside of this fancy bracket. You must be inside that fancy bracket, okay? And right here I'm going to give myself a note. What am I going to do with this note? This is where I'm going to run my setup or initial functions. Well, we'll even call them, because I like to say custom functions. It makes me feel good inside. So there's my note on line 13. And what is the name of my function? Just in case you forgot, we called it making, capital G for me, grass. Parentheses, and the parentheses right there are just to tell the program, hey, you are running a function. Find the function making grass. So when it gets down to line 14, it says, oh, I got to come down here all the way down to where I see making grass function on line 29, and then it runs through it. Okay. Now again, before you put in any code, just run this program, and right now with your background, and again for me this is a light blue color, you should at least be seeing a square on your screen. Not only should you have seen a square, but guess what? Chances are you saw it fall because you have world gravity on there. So it should be falling downwards. That's how do we know this is downward? Because it's positive 9.81. And eventually it's just going to go off the screen. So you may have to keep running it in order to see that sprite. Now, we don't want that sprite to move, okay? So what am I going to do? I'm going to make it not move, and hopefully you remember that code. Just think about it. If you need to pause the video, think about it, but it's grass dot collider. collider, and we're going to make the grass, well, let's go ahead and make it static. Why static? Because I don't want it to move. I don't want it to be affected by gravity, and I don't want it to be affected by any collisions. Couldn't you have made it none? You could have, but then it becomes part of the background, and then things can kind of go over or beneath it sometimes, depending on which layer you put it in. In addition to that, you wouldn't want to put kinematic because we don't actually want to be able to move the ground. We just wanted to sit there and be there all the time. Now, is this actually going to be grass? Of course not, and that's kind of the deception in video games, which we want to keep in mind. We're just trying to make things look like they are things, even though they are not. They're just, what is the grass going to be in this case? It's going to be a rectangle, isn't it? Now, I want the grass to be at the very bottom of the screen, and I want it to be the entire width of the screen, okay? So here's what I'm going to do. Let's just make it a rectangle first. And, oh, yeah, what should you have done? Now that you've put in this code, run it. Make sure that it works. Once it works, then you can move on to the next line of code. And if you need to pause this video because you're like, yeah, but I can't keep up with you, Mr. Sal, just pause the video. It's a video, okay? You can pause the video. I know you can. So next up, what am I going to do? Pause the video if you need to, but what am I going to do next? I'm going to make the grass a rectangle. Okay, well, it's already a square, which is a type of rectangle. Fair enough. But let's make it a specific size of rectangle. So I'm going to make the grass have a width. Now I'm just going to make it the width of the screen, okay? Width. Or the canvas. I should have said canvas right there. But it's the width of the canvas by saying width. Now if you're like, how do you know it's width? And what is that width? Right now, the width is 500 from up here in the canvas. Once you put these numbers into the canvas, I don't know, you could call it an ordered pair, but the width and height, it automatically stores the width variable as 500 right there. So down here, where I have my grass.width equals width, is thinking, oh, your grass width is 500. Now some students have been saying, oh, I like to make it longer because what are we going to be doing in this game? We're going to be shooting cannons, right? So they'd say, I'm going to make the width, I don't know, 1.5 times the width of the canvas, and that just gives the cannonball somewhere to roll. I don't think that's necessary, but that's completely up to you. Okay. So I have width, and let's go ahead and give it a height. Grass.height. Oh, I misspelled that. See that? Look, I almost did that wrong, and it would have given me some kind of freaky error, right? But I fixed it. I found my error and my typo, and I fixed it. height equals. Now, how tall do you want your grass to be? Please don't just copy what I have. Do what you want to do and make the grass as tall as you want it to be, okay? I don't really care how tall yours is. Just try not to copy off mine. I know you guys are like, yeah, but my code won't work unless I copy it. The numbers you can mess with. This stuff, yeah, you can mess with a little bit. There are different ways to do width and height. I'm not worried about that until you guys get more used to this type of code. But the numbers, at least play around with the numbers and just don't copy mine. Again, if you're like, yeah, but I really like your game, okay, feel free to copy it. But I would highly recommend, as a video game developer, doing your own thing and starting the creativity process. So I'm gonna go with 15. What the heck? So you should run the code at this time, okay? Before you put in any more lines of code. Now, what you have hovering in the middle of your canvas is a rectangle, right? And it's height 15 with the width. You can't see the ends of the width, but it at least spans the width of the canvas. And next thing, what we're going to do, let's go ahead and put this at the bottom of the screen. So grass, remember the code. If I want to put it at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to use grass dot y. Very good. So we're going to give it a y value, and we're going to make it at the bottom of the screen, or the canvas rather. Okay, so I'm just going to say, well, is there a way to just put that number in? Yeah, I know the height of the screen is 500, but again, just in case that changes, I'm going to do height right there. Okay, now if you're like, yeah, but it's not really showing all the grass. That's true. If you wanted to show all that grass, then you can subtract, which is going to move that up, half of the grass height, because right now it's only showing half of 15, which is about 7.5. Now, am I okay with that? I am. I don't care about that. Are you okay with it? If you're not, again, you're going to subtract the grass, H-E-I-G-H-T. Oh, I almost forgot my dot. See that again? Grass, G-R-A-S-S, dot, H-E-I-G-H-T, and then you would divide that by 2. Then you can see that whole 15 height in your grass. Okay? You know what? I'll keep that in there just in case you would like to see the full grass. But again, it's not necessary that you do. Okay, with this, what we can do now is let's just add a couple. You should run it, right? You should always run that at this time. What I'd like to do is give the grass some color. So grass, my variable, and color. color space equals space apostrophe, and let's see what color we want for the grass. I like a nice spring green. It's not. Let's see, maybe something. Maybe. Oh, I like that one. That looks pretty nice. I like this one. Okay, so this is going to be my color for the grass. I just copy that in. I go back into my code, and Control V will paste that hex code in there for me. Now, if you were just like, I just wanted to be light green, then go and put that in there. I don't care. Just remember, no spaces if you're going to use wording for the colors. Now, go and run the code, and again, you should see this light green color. Now, I'm going to call it a spring green because that makes me feel good inside. And make sure that runs. If you have any mistakes or errors, then fix it, okay? Don't put any more code in until you have fixed it. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to think about layers, okay? So remember, the grasses should be like the first, it should be above everything else. So grass.layer, this is kind of new code for us. Grass.layer equals, I'm just going to put on level 5 because I'm not really sure, and of course I do know, but let's say we're not sure which layer it should go on, and then we can change this layer. Well, level 5 is going to put it above all the other levels below it. So below it would be level 4, below that would be level 3, below that would be level 2, below that would be level 1, and below that I believe there is even a level 0. Okay, so I have my layer. Last thing I'm going to do with this grass is we're going to put some friction on that, okay, so that as the cannonballs roll, if you will, across the grass, that they'll slow down, kind of like you'd expect with grass. So we're going to call it grass.friction, friction, space equals space, and let's just give it a friction of 2.25 because it doesn't matter. All right. Now, again, later on, as we start actually getting the cannonballs on the screen, then we can worry about that kind of stuff. But for now, this is all we need to do to create the ground. And so go ahead, run your program, make sure it works. Let's just take a quick look at the code, but I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. There we go. And let's go up all the way to the top so you guys can see that. So there's my first few lines of code. Here's my setup function, which ends on it starts on line 7 and ends in line 15. We did put in the new variable grass, and then down here we have lines 20 through, well, 23, right? I almost skipped that. Lines 20 through 23 is my draw function. We will be adding that to that later. Don't worry about that. And, I like a little bit more lines between my functions. And then my custom function that we just barely made, making grass function. And we've given the grass, we made it an object on line 32. And then after that, we gave it all of its properties, its characteristics, if you will, just whatever you want to call that. But at least right now, you should be able to run that program. Do run it. Make sure that you don't have any errors. If you need to, you can pause the video here to make sure any of your spelling is correct. Again, common errors we're still seeing is this capital S with Sprite, or even sometimes it's missing the parentheses right there. Or let me think. We haven't seen this very often, but sometimes students will miss the hashtag, or for me, in my generation, was £. Let's see. Or maybe when you call your function, you didn't capitalize it. If you use 2 words, remember that's camel case right there. Other than that, though, the other stuff that we put into the program for making the canvas, that should be stuff that you already have. So, again, here's the code at the top. Here's the code in the middle. Here's the code at the bottom. So if that stuff is not working, make sure you stop. You need to pause the video if you need to. Look at that code, get it fixed, and then you can move on. But for now, this is good enough for me. So make sure you save it, submit this, and continue to get the credit, and then you're good to go. All right, thanks for watching, you guys. Subscribe if you want, like if you want, I don't care. Hopefully, I just hope this helped you out. That's all I really care about. So you guys have a good one.